Sony's recent patent filings continue to shine a light on what the future of PlayStation VR might look like as the peripheral prepares to jump into next-gen gaming with the PS5. However, instead of looking at the immersive worlds that VR can take players to with games like Moss and its upcoming sequel, Sony is taking a look at introducing more AR elements to the system. As is common for these types of Sony patents, this latest introduction of an AR space into PlayStation VR also comes with several new bells and whistles, including an especially interactive UI. This could mean that Sony is planning to bring a new type of personality to the system, with the added benefit of giving game developers the chance to add a personal touch to future AR experiences. One feature of this patent specifically mentions a virtual character, and designing a way for the device to show this character move from an on-screen display to walking directly into the playing area. This could mean that not only is Sony looking to put players in the game with PlayStation VR, but bring the game directly from the screen and into reality. The first use of this feature also appears to be in development within the patent as well, with a virtual assistant being an early design for a character that might jump out of the screen and into the room. While this type of thing isn't entirely new, with many AR games working on phones or other camera-equipped devices to overlay something onto an image of the real world, this new patent goes a step further. Some of the language in the filing suggests that the device will be able to also recreate the play area in 3D in order to allow the virtual character to better interact with and travel around the space. Brought in line with other leaked PlayStation VR features like eye tracking, this type of AR programming could make for a startling simulation with this AI assistant. As more and more information gets revealed about the technology being implemented in PlayStation VR 2, the new peripheral continues to look like a massive leap forward for the medium. Considering the various barriers to entry that VR currently faces, both through Sony's consoles and in the PC gaming realm, a push to bridge the gaps to AR could be exactly what the entire medium needs. Much of what is thought to be included is still speculation, but the next iteration of VR on PS5 could push the peripheral further into the mainstream. Moving forward, we have an update from Blue Box Studios, as some of the mystery surrounding horror game Abandoned may finally be lifted when the upcoming app launches for the PlayStation 5. Blue Box Studios' Abandoned has certainly generated a stir among gamers, though perhaps not intentionally. While not much regarding the contents of the game have been shared thus far, that may change in the near future, as the preload date for the Abandoned app has been revealed. Recently, players have shared conspiracy theories regarding the true nature of Abandoned, speculating that what's known so far is simply a cover for a new Silent Hill game. While the game director has gone on camera to say otherwise, those who are still desperate for any kind of new life in the Silent Hill series are holding on to hope. The Abandoned app is said to provide more information on the game, including access to the title's first major trailer. It was originally set to release at the end of June, but has seen multiple delays since. Now, an updated PlayStation Store listing and the developer's official social media channels have revealed that the app will be available for preload on July 29th. The app will launch its introduction on August 10th, with the trailer to follow sometime the same month. Part of the reason why the speculation has continued has been due to the app itself. Rather than simply releasing a trailer online or during an event like E3, Abandoned has tied the trailer to the app. Much about the game is still a mystery, and fans of survival horror and Silent Hill are still excited by the prospect of either a secret new Silent Hill or possibly a game with similar gameplay and atmosphere to the Konami classics. Of course, not every mysterious game generates this much excitement among gamers. But despite how long it's been since the last Silent Hill game released, fans are still clearly holding on to their fondness for the series, even if the hope for a new series entry coming from Blue Box is questionable at best. It's worth noting, though, that the audience was primed for this kind of eager speculation by Konami, which chose to release the mysterious PT demo as a way of revealing the existence of the Silent Hills project. The demo had no obvious connection to Kojima or Konami upon its release, yet fans delving deep into the demo ultimately unlocked the Silent Hills teaser. It's reasonable for Silent Hill fans to still be looking for hints indicating something is going on. While the release of Abandoned may be unlikely to be a new Silent Hill, gamers may still end up discovering a new favorite with its launch. The release of the app will be the first major opportunity they get to see what the game has to offer. But it could be the one that can be revealed at the PlayStation event. Job listings newly posted at Wild Sheep Studio are the latest evidence that the highly anticipated PlayStation exclusive Wild is still in development. Wild was at one point one of the most interesting games being showcased by PlayStation. However, it has largely disappeared over the past 5 years, leading to questions of whether it was even still being worked on by Wild Sheep Studio. While several job listings aren't firm evidence of Wild's continued development, it's about as close as it gets. The job listings were discovered by a user on Reset Era, taken from the official Wild Sheep Studio website. The jobs themselves and their listings aren't particularly notable. There are listings for a graphics programmer, a senior gameplay programmer, a tools/pipeline programmer, a senior engine programmer, and a level artist. What they do imply is that Wild Sheep Studio is actively hiring for an ongoing project, with Wild being Wild Sheep Studio's only currently known project. While Wild Sheep Studio itself has remained quiet about the status of Wild since it was shown during 2014 Gamescom and Paris Games Week in 2015, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been news about it. Michel Ancel, who founded Wild Sheep Studio but resigned in September 2020, shared a statement following his departure. He said he knew many were interested in what will happen to Wild, and then followed by saying that the team at Wild Sheep Studio is autonomous, and that the project is going super well. The idea then isn't that Wild may have been cancelled sometime between 2015 and 2020 anymore, so much as the status of the project could have been tenuous and Ancel's departure left open the possibility of things going south. As such, the new job listings imply that since Ancel left, Wild Sheep Studio continues to move forward on its work. There's always a possibility that Wild Sheep Studio is working on something other than Wild, of course. Wild may have also changed dramatically since it was showcased in 2015, and it could be unrecognizable. Further, there's a question of whether Sony is still publishing Wild or whatever project Wild Sheep Studio is working on. Confirmation of PlayStation's involvement may relieve worries about the project. When Ancel left Wild Sheep Studio, he also mentioned that there are beautiful things to be seen soon. Perhaps Wild Sheep Studio will share what it's working on before too long. With nearly 7 years passing since Wild was last seen, it has been a long time since the last proper update. Still, Wild Sheep Studio is likely more frustrated about that than those excited for Wild are. Speaking of upcoming games, we have an update on the highly anticipated Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida gives us a small update on the game's development, why it missed E3, and if it will make Tokyo Game Show. Recently, Square Enix held a 14-hour broadcast for Final Fantasy XIV, an event that has quickly become a tradition for the company. During a Q&A event with Naoki Yoshida, who is currently serving as a producer on Final Fantasy XVI, addressed the development of the game and other small details. Currently, the main scenario writing is completed and the development team is currently working through the final English voice recording phase. Yoshida confirmed that development is going well, though they want to maintain a high-quality standard and don't want to drip-feed information to fans. Instead, the team is working on polishing the content as much as possible for the next time they reveal anything to the public, which is largely why it skipped E3 in favor of Final Fantasy Origins. Due to this polishing phase, Yoshida isn't sure the game will be ready for Tokyo Game Show, despite the desire to show something as the studio continues to work to get the game into a playable state by then. While the news may disappoint us, for now, we largely only have the original trailer to go off of for any sort of details on the upcoming game. Final Fantasy XVI is one of Square Enix's most ambitious projects, which seems plausible considering how much time and polish is being added before the game is deemed ready to be shown off again. July 9th marked the inaugural WitcherCon, a collaborative event between Netflix and developer CD Projekt Red celebrating both the Witcher Netflix series and the series of games including The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Fans were awaiting news regarding a possible upgrade to The Witcher 3 alongside news of the Netflix series' second season, which was postponed due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The first season of The Witcher premiered in December 2019, but filming of the second season was paused multiple times due to coronavirus-related safety concerns. During WitcherCon, which was hosted simultaneously via Netflix and CD Projekt Red's Twitch channels, it was officially announced that Season 2 will launch on Netflix on December 17, 2021. In addition, The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf, an animated film starring Geralt's mentor Vesemir, will release on Netflix on August 23. During a heated trivia competition between the Netflix series showrunners and The Witcher 3 developers Philip Weber and Blage Augustinek, the CD Projekt Red team formally announced a next-generation upgrade for Wild Hunt that will be released later this year. They also revealed that this upgrade will feature items inspired by the Netflix series, possibly including the armor worn by Henry Cavill's version of series protagonist Geralt of Rivia. No items were specifically confirmed, with only the armor being mentioned during the stream. The upgraded version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition will optimize the game for better performance on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X/S. Planned upgrades include ray tracing capability and shorter loading times in both the base game and its two expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. The upgraded Complete Edition, which includes both Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, will be available as a standalone purchase for PC and next-generation consoles. It will also be offered as a free upgrade for customers who already own Wild Hunt on either PC or current-generation consoles. Information regarding how to redeem this upgrade will be announced at a later date. Whether or not a new Witcher game is in the works, no announcement was made at WitcherCon regarding the topic. Other announcements made at WitcherCon included the release of previously announced mobile game tie-in The Witcher, Monster Slayer, in which players will create their own original Witcher character and fight iconic monsters appearing in the series such as Leshen, Trolls, and Striga. The game, which will use alternate reality technology similar to Pokémon Go and other location-based mobile games, is currently planned to release on July 21 for both Android and iOS devices. Pre-registration is currently available via the Google Play Store. Also announced were figurines based on the Witcher Netflix series and others showing Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer in feudal Japanese fashion. It's worth mentioning that The Witcher 3 was buggy at launch, but it was nowhere near the level of Cyberpunk 2077. At release, the latter was practically unplayable on PS4 and Xbox One, with the PlayStation Store removing the game and the Microsoft Store adding a warning shortly after launch. Cyberpunk 2077 is back on the PS Store now. It's moving forward, but it's hard not to compare the two and see how The Witcher 3 stands as the better CD Projekt Red product. And in turn, it's only getting better in 2021. It does not have a proper release date yet, just a release window for this year, but fans know some of what to expect from this upgrade. There will be targeted enhancements for PS5 and Xbox Series X such as shorter load times and ray tracing capabilities, among others. It is also getting new DLC based on the Witcher Netflix show, which is likely to be minor, but is exciting for many fans nonetheless. After all, The Witcher 3 is in solid enough state that all it needs are general, console-targeted improvements, and it's almost guaranteed to launch in a condition much better than Cyberpunk 2077's original release. This indubitably means that The Witcher 3's PS5 and Xbox Series X upgrade will be compared to Cyberpunk 2077's for better or worse. Even less is specifically known about Cyberpunk 2077's PS5 and Xbox Series X upgrade, other than it is supposed to release this year too. PS4 and Xbox One owners will be able to upgrade for free, but therein lies a catch: Cyberpunk 2077 is much newer than The Witcher 3. Many fans may have pushed off playing the game because they wanted to play it at its best on PS5 and Xbox Series X, instead of PS4 and Xbox One. No one waited for The Witcher 3's upgrade. It's a nice surprise, and a welcome one, with many likely returning to the continent with its release. Cyberpunk 2077's upgrade doesn't only have the onus and expectation to be the best console version of the game, but it has to hold its own against The Witcher 3 in comparison, as well as make an impression on any newcomers giving the game a chance. CD Projekt Red has been hard at work on the game, but many are still split after Cyberpunk 2077's release. This PS5 and Xbox Series X upgrade already has that pressure, but is amplified by The Witcher 3 upgrade. That is enough for concern, but a double-edged sword has potential too. this version of Cyberpunk 2077 could win over a lot of those unsatisfied with the game, if done right. If Cyberpunk 2077 nails the landing, perhaps one day it'll be held up in good comparisons to The Witcher 3, but for now, all eyes are on the upcoming upgrades. Moving forward, we have a weird but similar situation, where some of the legendary game franchises are being tuned into a live service game. Recently, Ubisoft pulled back the curtain on Assassin's Creed Infinity, a new approach to the classic video game series. Unfortunately, the details mean that most of the game is still veiled, even if it is known to be in development. It's years away at least, and will serve as a live service hub of sorts for expanding the Assassin's Creed franchise. It's inspired by Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto's success with the live service model, but it remains to be seen exactly what this is. From the sounds of it, it'll be a way to advance the solo narrative through the introduction of a wider world where players will return to the game as a starting point. In other words, instead of AC Origins, AC Odyssey, and AC Valhalla existing as all separate games, Assassin's Creed Infinity will contain all future stories for the franchise. Again, this is speculation. AC Infinity is early in development, but it does sound similar to what Rockstar plans to do with GTA 6. Grand Theft Auto 6 is reportedly taking an incremental development approach to the franchise, wherein the game will release moderately sized and be expanded upon with new content for months and years afterward. As such, Assassin's Creed Infinity sounds like a game where players will be able to enjoy the story, maybe play it with friends, and engage in the Assassin versus Templar conflict in new ways, but it may be an uncompleted game, and I am not with that. One thing that does stand out is that AC Infinity will feature multiple settings, adding more and more as the game itself grows, but that begs a big question likely answered by having a modern take on the franchise. As fans of the franchise know, the Assassin vs. Templar conflict is global. While an individual game may focus on the conflict in North America, fans know that it's happening in France too. Due to the live service model, it's unlikely that players will be taking on individual characters per story, like past games, but instead one assassin protagonist, maybe Templar too, of their own creation. Otherwise, it doesn't really sound like a live service game. Assuming this is the case, then it's likely that AC Infinity will be focusing on the conflict at a certain point in history, and that point in history is likely to be modern. In turn, this means that communication and travel has to be on par with a global conflict story. Maybe it's racing across the world to prevent new catastrophes pointed out by Desmond and Layla. Perhaps it's racing against the Templars to obtain the pieces of Eden scattered throughout the world. Whatever it is, a live service model featuring multiple settings needs a control factor. One character makes the most sense, but that character has to be able to go to these locations and do so. As such, the game is more likely to take place in more modern times than ancient Egypt, Greece, or games that took place prior to the Industrial Revolution as seen in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now, of course, that doesn't mean playing as Assassins in 2021, or whatever year it releases. But it does mean that players need a way to travel the world that is somewhat reasonable in terms of lore, so the games associated with Assassin's Creed Infinity will likely be more modern than past games. That doesn't mean running around with a gun either, but assassins operating from the shadows with unique tools in the 18th, 19th, or 20th century opens the door to bring back the best features of past games, while maintain a coherent narrative in a set time of space. Narrowing this speculative time frame down is near impossible, but it's likely that the game would avoid the World War eras. Fans are likely looking at a period of years where there was enough global intrigue and happening to justify a tighter frame for the franchise to operate in. Of course, that's quite the balance too. Many have thought it was time for Assassin's Creed to end the modern-day storyline, while Ubi itself has admitted to avoiding certain time frames due to how the tech would change gameplay. So, it's likely to be a particular decade with perhaps some modern-day in the background, but something where tech exists, but the choice of a hidden blade over it makes sense. This could still be anywhere from the beginning of the 18th century to the end of the 20th, but it's likely to put some distance between it and games that took place in the 1700s. Either way, it's all up in the air for now, but Assassin's Creed Infinity's approach has to be a big change from the standard approach. Focusing in on a time period for global exploration makes sense. Otherwise, if players are going to different points and times in history, many may ask what's the point of the live service elements then? Ever since Ubisoft took a year-long gap after the release of Assassin's Creed Syndicate to ensure enough development time for 2017's Assassin's Creed Origins, it started to become increasingly obvious what the company was aiming for via its RPG revolution. With the shift towards an RPG structure, Assassin's Creed littered its huge worlds that once felt barren with a multitude of marginally better yet repetitive side quests. A plethora of loot comprising of armor sets and weapons kept the grind for higher numbers engaging enough for some fans, and this framework also allowed Ubisoft to delve deeper into the microtransactions model for XP and gear. A plethora of post-launch content spanning entire campaigns comprised of mythical deities and figures has also been released. With Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Ubisoft upped the ante in a number of ways, as its rendition of ancient Greece depended on solely arbitrary number crunching, courtesy of the expanded-upon RPG systems. The game also received loads of post-launch expansions, including Legacy of the First Blade and The Fate of Atlantis among many others. 2020's Assassin's Creed Valhalla dialed back some of the grinding associated with leveling in AC Odyssey, but it doubled down on the paid post-launch support with Wrath of the Druids and the upcoming Siege of Paris alongside a bunch of other DLCs and seasonal content. Assassin's Creed was consistently building towards a live-service model for the franchise moving forward, as evident by these entries. Ubisoft also acknowledged this in a recent financial report as well, as high-ranking officials stated that the company would be focusing more on free-to-play experiences moving forward. It's yet to be ascertained whether Assassin's Creed Infinity turns out free-to-play, but most speculation points to this being the case. While the recent negativity surrounding the announcement is not defining the game's quality, there is a plausible doubt as to what this means for the franchise moving forward. Ubisoft states in its official announcement about not passing the baton from game to game, which suggests that Assassin's Creed Infinity might become the only focus for the franchise once it releases. If true, this could be a shocking revelation for series fans that don't resonate with live-service titles. As demonstrated by Activision's reliance on pumping out a new Call of Duty every year, along with its live-service battle royale game Call of Duty, Warzone, something similar could happen with Ubisoft's subsidiaries. Underperforming studios could be put into support roles for feeding more content into the next expansion, something that would surely frustrate some fans. Still, with the project itself nowhere near completion, many of these concerns are still just far-sighted speculation at this point. After all, if Ubisoft is able to realize Assassin's Creed Infinity's potential, the game could cater to every type of fan, but if the live service is like an unfinished game or a mid-one like the recent Assassin's Creeds, it's a problem. It'll be quite some time before fans learn more details, with the project being years away, but multiple settings means Assassin's Creed could and should deliver on time periods it has teased or fans have asked for. Since how time works in Assassin's Creed Infinity remains an unconfirmed detail, the following are not based on time periods that should be explored but purely geographical locations. Japan is the big one, a setting that would give even the most critical Assassin's Creed Infinity follower pause. Japan has been a location highly requested by fans, and it has even been teased by Ubisoft before. In AC3, the above symbols were shown off and correlate with potential locations. The first is an Eye of Horus, Assassin's Creed Origins, and the second is a Greek omega symbol, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The latter is a Japanese torii, but there is no game to correspond with it. Instead of a Japan setting for Assassin's Creed, AC Valhalla came in with Vikings. With it being highly demanded and highly teased, it's possible Assassin's Creed Infinity will feature a Japan setting to some degree. If Assassin's Creed Infinity takes an incremental development approach like the rumored Grand Theft Auto 6, it may only have one to begin with and more added in the following months. Opening with Japan would be a strong move for Assassin's Creed Infinity. India has had a strange relationship with Assassin's Creed. It has featured in comics, with a follow-up game in Assassin's Creed Chronicles, India also exploring the story of Arbaz Mir. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate's Last Maharaja DLC, players explore a little bit of the culture as Jacob and Evie assist Dileep Singh. But there has never been any real indication that a mainline game would explore the history and setting of India. The truth is, it absolutely should. For example, if Assassin's Creed Infinity continues to emphasize mythology, as the past few games have, players could see more ISU based on these beliefs. India's ancient mythology would be perfect for Assassin's Creed, with ISU taking on the myths of these deities as it did with the Egyptian gods, the Greek gods, and the Norse gods. Even in a more grounded environment, India would be ripe for all the things that make Assassin's Creed the franchise that it is. Like India, China is featured in the Chronicles collection of games, but that wouldn't stop it from becoming involved in Assassin's Creed Infinity. The fans speak for themselves here, as China is often one recurring location rumored for Assassin's Creed, and for good reason. China has deep lore already, Ezio and Xiao Jun brought it to the fore of Assassin's Creed and far more. Regardless of how Assassin's Creed Infinity handles time, China is one location that would be perfect no matter when the game was set. Westerns have always had an audience, but the Red Dead Redemption franchise really has it locked down in the gaming industry. As such, Red Dead Redemption is likely Assassin's Creed's worst enemy when it comes to a potential Wild West location. While a developmental time period may mean less rooftops to run across, mid to later time periods would be the perfect setting for parkour, epic horseback and wagon chases, and more. Modernized enough would bring it more in line with contemporary Assassin's Creed games, while uncivilized enough would give it a unique spin. Ubisoft has teased the American Midwest in Abstergo emails before, so it's not a stretch to think it could go full Western with a setting. Notably, again, if Ubisoft has had these discussions, it may have avoided a full game with a Western setting because of RDR. It's a similar vein to the Ghost of Tsushima Assassin's Creed Japan comparisons, as Ubisoft may not want to feed the comparisons or operate in this way. But with Assassin's Creed Infinity, the American West is as viable as Japan because they are not the sole focus. Many Assassin's Creed fans and ill-conceived rumors have often requested Rome return as a setting. Just because Assassin's Creed Infinity is featuring multiple settings doesn't mean old ones can't return, especially depending on how / when they are set. Many call for a game set during the time period of the Roman Empire, and while that begs the question of how Assassin's Creed Infinity handles time again, that doesn't mean there aren't plenty of times Assassin's Creed could return to Rome. Whatever the location or several locations are present, the game should be a quality one, returning to the roots of the original games. Turning a legendary franchise like Assassin's Creed and Halo into a live service game, I am not with that. A few new IPs as a live service game can be acceptable, but converting those franchises into a live service may reduce its quality and can kill the hype we used to have. All we can do is wait and see if the game is worth it. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and if you want to contribute for the growth of the channel, the link to my PayPal in the video's description and in the channel banner. Donations are always appreciated. Thanks for watching the video, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then from SMPV it's goodbye.